about a woman I met who eventually played a big part in saving my life. I met her in the spot, which is better known as the Dope House. It was January 7, 2017, when I met Lost. Although I thought this was a very peculiar name, I would soon understand why she called herself this. I was feeling pretty down, I was homeless, and I needed something to lift my spirits, so I walked in. She was sitting at the end of the pool table that was often used as a bar. She was on the brink of tears. I had a lot going on in my own life, so I sat as far away from her as possible. I motioned for nephew to come towards me. I gave him my order. I wanted to get high, as high as I could possibly get. I was feeling like there was no way out. I certainly didn't feel like listening to a stranger's problems. As I sat waiting for my dope, I opened my beer and I proceeded to drink my problems away. And then I heard a muffled cry from the lady at the end of the table. I went over to her and I touched her shoulder. As she looked up, she began to wipe her eyes and I asked her, "Are you okay? Is there someone you need to call or come get you?" She said no and told me that she was sick and tired, and she began to cry again. I asked her, "Why are you crying?" She said she had been bouncing around trying to find a place called free, and that her search had taken her to a lot of strange places. Along the way, she listened to the wrong people and ended up in places like chaos, confusion, low self-esteem, and abandonment. Just then, someone knocked on the door and she almost jumped out of her skin. As the doorman let the customer in, I could see the relief in her eyes. I asked, "Who are you afraid of?" And she looked downward and said, "I ran away from misery." And I thought that was him. He always manages to find me. She met him through the people who misled her and only wanted to use her. She met many characters along the way. Cheater was first, and he'd introduced her to liar. And soon she met all of their friends, shame, and guilt, and abuse, and pain. Pain introduced her to misery, and she could not get away from me. Through her tears, I saw in her eyes a desperate woman who didn't deserve what she'd been through. You see, I knew where free was, and I wanted to help her. I'd often thought about going there myself. I asked her if she still wanted to go, and she shook her head, yes. I saw her tears sparkle and her eyes light up with hope. She looked at me and asked, "Do you really know where it is?" She'd been misled so much she wasn't sure I was really going to help her. I couldn't hear her talking because I was looking at the crack I had been holding all that time. A voice in my head said, "That's your misery right there." I put the crack down and I said, "Come on, let's go," before I changed my mind. I knew if I smoked any of it, I wasn't going anywhere. As we walked out the door, I said a silent prayer for Lost and myself. And I prayed that misery wouldn't find us before we could get to free. Lost asked me how far until we got to the bus stop. And I said, "It's another street over. It's on the corner of Surrender and Hope." As we stood waiting for our bus, and Lost talked about all that she'd endured, I thought about all that I had lost. Our bus came and I could see the urgency on Lost's face. My eyes welled up with tears because I felt it too. On the ride, she thanked me, but it was I who should have been thanking her. Lost helped me think about my past choices and the choices I had in that moment. And we finally made it to free, better known as Amethyst, where women like Lost and I become whole again. A place that gives you renewed hope for a brighter future. A place full of love and support from people who don't mind loving you until you can begin to love yourself. Thanks to Amethyst, I've been clean and sober for 2 years and 9 months. I am no longer lost.